Up above, a massive blue cyclops lets out a roar. Natsuki panics over running into an A-rank monster they can't beat, and as their distress signals go unanswered, the narrator explains how a new rule took over the world in 2050. A hand flickers with glowing blue energy as it targets a mysterious device. Dungeons suddenly emerged as unknown domains spawning monsters and treasure, giving rise to brave challengers known as explorers. The world changed completely as people tuned into online dungeon streams, watching in horror as Team Astera gets cornered by a terrifying cyclops. As Natsuki screams in absolute terror, Towa tells her it is good. Down below, someone struggles on their feet, gasping in pain. The giant cyclops monster loses an arm in a brutal flash. As onlookers cheer, the strongest explorer of the modern era arrives on the scene. She tells her opponent to show her what they've got, unleashing her shadows. Activating her skill, she unleashes a powerful shadow art against the beast. A monstrous one-eyed entity appears in a sudden burst of violent energy. Shocked onlookers stare at the screen, wondering who that mysterious person was and if Towa is okay. An absolute and unchanging rule governs the world of explorers. While only women can normally awaken as explorers in this female-dominated dungeon world, a shocking exception exists. The witnesses can barely believe their eyes at the sight. He stands ready with glowing blue magic markings, kicking off the exploration. Down in the ruined streets, he panics as he realizes he doesn't want to die here. Suddenly, a teacher snaps him out of his trance, demanding to know if he's sleeping in class again. He stares blankly ahead. Confused, Ayukawa wonders why he was just dreaming about dying. Nearby classmates whisper that he's a total loser who doesn't belong at an explorer academy. The teacher calls him out to test his knowledge. He asks for the highest explorer rank and the name of the strongest modern explorer. Ayukawa blurts out SSS-RANK, prompting the whole classroom to burst out laughing at his sheer stupidity. Sitting back down in his seat, Ayukawa realizes he messed up once again. Up at the front of the classroom, an instructor tells everyone not to end up like the class dropout, warning them that no woman is going to provide for a stupid man. Sitting at his desk, he figures he's going to be the laughingstock for a while. The teacher keeps lecturing, explaining that men ruling society is ancient history and only women can become explorers to conquer dungeons in this new system. He adds that student explorer Natsuki is joining their cooking class today, so they better treat her right. Hearing this news, one classmate turns around to buzz with the others that Natsuki is actually coming. While classmates drool over Natsuki's looks and wealth, Mr. Dropout rests his chin on his hand, thinking it's ridiculous how guys only ever think about sucking up to women. Outside, the Grand Explorer Academy stands tall under a clear sky. Inside this institution, women are trained as elite explorers, while men learn to be house husbands in a world dominated by awakened female explorers. Ayukawa stands tall in a sharp tuxedo during cooking practice, looking confident next to his dish. Yet every society has its dropouts who struggle to fit in. Other boys whisper mockingly that Ayukawa's food looks terrible and he's totally an idiot until Natsuki dashes over, completely amazed by what she sees. Taking a bite, Natsuki happily declares it tastes so good she wants to marry someone who cooks like that every day. She praises his cooking skills with a bright smile, and Ayukawa nervously thanks her as she excitedly tells him she has memorized his name now. Watching from nearby, the other male students glare in bitter jealousy, realizing Ayukawa just stole a massive march on them. Sitting alone on the steps outside, he mutters that a man has no future outside of being a house husband or a host. He reflects that guys can never be explorers because the heroes he idolized as a kid were strictly women, but he refuses to give up. Ever since finding out, he's kept pushing forward until some students walk up and call him Mr. Dropout. A student mocks him for eating lunch alone and asks if he was practicing how to suck up to Natsuki. Ayukawa stammers a denial, but the other guy snaps that he's getting way too full of himself. Down in the lower floors of the training dungeon, Towa spots Mr. Dropout and calls out his name. Her companions ask if that's the cocky loner guy everyone's been talking about. Before he can react, Towa grabs him by the collar, demanding to know if he thinks a guy can defy a woman. The girls can't believe a mere guy is trying to take the explorer exam, laughing that only women can awaken and men are only good for being house husbands. The harsh reality sets in that men truly cannot become explorers. They yell that it's super annoying when guys who don't know their place try to dream big. Standing over him with a boot on his head, Haruhito mockingly demands an apology for having dreams. Pinned to the floor with bruises all over, Mr. Dropout wonders if he should just smile and beg for forgiveness or fight back. He takes a brutal hit to the face, gasping in pain as he gets knocked down. As he takes a beating, He wonders if he should just give up on his impossible dream. Lady Toa pins him down, mocking his futile dream and telling him men have no business being explorers. Lying beaten on the ground, he flashes back to a childhood memory of wanting to prove himself. Back then, a young friend promised to become an explorer right beside him. They exchanged a cheerful agreement, looking forward to the future together. Two arms cross against a bright sky, sealing a firm agreement. It was a firm promise made between friends. Coming back to reality, Mr. Dropout bitterly asks himself if he was just an idiot. That vow meant everything to him. Despite his injuries, Mr. Dropout suddenly sneers and calls his attackers trash mobs. Hearing that, Toa and her group snap, deciding they need to teach him a proper lesson. They close in to finish him off, telling him to apologize while groveling on the floor. The bruised teenager glares and tells them to eat shit. The floor cracks open as something bursts through. Everyone gasps as a massive three-headed monster crashes into the training area. Panic breaks out instantly as Natsuki and the students scream for their lives, begging the explorers to do something against a beast they can never beat. The terrifying beast towers over them with glowing red eyes. Haruhito watches in horror, recognizing the creature as an A-rank Cerberus. Ayukawa Haruhito steps back into the dungeon as exploration officially resumes. A mysterious voice commends Ayukawa, leaving him stunned and confused about his new explorer status. The voice addresses him as an SSS-RANK explorer, striking a strangely nostalgic chord in his mind. Witnessing a man defeat a monster leaves onlookers in absolute shock. They struggle to process the impossible truth that a man could possess magic power. Panicking, one of them urges the others to kill him before things get worse. He desperately plots to silence the witness and claim the victory for themselves. Ayukawa listens in disbelief to their absurd scheme. He completely loses his temper, shouting that it is absurd for a mere man to be stronger than a woman. Fuyutsuki agrees fiercely, insisting there is no way a man could ever surpass female strength, while Ayukawa stays silent. As magic power surges through Ayukawa, he feels his body burning and tells everyone to stay away. Natsuki screams in sheer panic as the violent magical shockwave throws her back in terror. Haruhito loses his cool entirely, screaming in rage that Ayukawa is beneath him. Ayukawa extends his hand outward in front of his opponent. He places his hand directly onto the adversary's head. A massive burst of purple energy erupts around them, overwhelming the area. Ayukawa drops a cold apology, making it clear he doesn't care about anyone's ranking. With all hostile responses silenced, he flatly refuses when asked if he will return to the academy. Struggling with strange new memories echoing in his head, Ayukawa decides there is something he needs to check. He reflects on having two conflicting sets of memories, one from his past life as a man and another as an explorer. 3 days later, instead of returning to the academy, he camps out along the way until he reaches a specific destination. He stands before a cleared, depleted dungeon known as the Okuchichibu Barrier, wondering if a hidden door holds proof of his past life memories. Driven by an intense thirst for strength, Ayukawa steps forward into the mysterious purple glow of the chamber. Shock washes over him as he realizes the legendary weapon he was looking for is actually right in front of him. The National Treasure Class Divine Artifact Onikiri Yasutsuna rests before him, bathed in dark, swirling energy. Ayukawa questions the reality of his past life memories, noting that the only difference is how only women awaken in this world. Suddenly, a system message interrupts his thoughts, reporting a nearby distress signal inside the depleted dungeon. The system cross-references the Explorer database, identifying the victim as Natsuki Natsukawa, a B-rank Academy affiliate who died at 17. Stunned by the revelation, Ayukawa learns that Natsuki was found decapitated within the Okuchichibu Barrier on July 1, 2050. Realizing her fate, he discovers that according to his past life history, she died while acting as the rearguard for her team. He wonders if events from his past life will repeat here, reasoning that changing history has unknown consequences and that he has no real reason to save her. Natsuki reaches out, calling him Haruhito and telling him she finally remembered his name. He rejects that thought, realizing that as an explorer, he can't just stand by. He reacts in surprise as a sudden burst of bright light fills his vision. Thinking of the pinnacle of explorers at rank 1, Ayukawa decides there is only one thing left for him to do. Blinding magic flares across the battlefield as weapons clash in a flurry of sparks. Natsuki hopes everyone else managed to escape, laughing nervously as she admits she never signed up for this. Faced with an armored knight, she realizes her sword and magic are completely useless against it and her escape is completely blocked. The knight launches a devastating swing right at her. She gasps out in pain as the heavy strike hits her. She lies broken and battered against the stone floor, figuring she is about to die right here. She hopes the others got away safely since her distress signal is useless, lamenting all the things she still wanted to do. Thinking of her final wishes, she dreams of eating good food, finding a sweet husband, and then, before she can finish, a terrifying armored monster looms over her, cutting her thoughts short with a gasp. As she recalls that boy's incredible cooking and begs not to die, shadow arts suddenly strike the beast down. Surrounded by dark purple flames and glowing shadows, Haruhito activates Shadow Embrace to face the terrifying threat before him. Natsukawa stares in shock at the mysterious savior standing before her, and he calmly tells her he is an explorer. Drawing upon the power of Onakiri Yasutsuna, Haruhito clashes fiercely against the armored monster. The armored creature shrieks in agony as the devastating sword strikes, lands square on target. As the battle continues, Haruhito realizes his memories and true combat instincts are finally returning. Channeling his hidden abilities, Haruhito unleashes a powerful shadow art that rips through the enemy. Finding the noise annoying, Haruhito finishes off the beast and declares the dungeon subjugation complete. He stands over the defeated foe, holding a magic stone and wondering what it is. Natsukawa stares in total disbelief at the defeated monster and asks him who he really is. His face remains hidden in shadow as he addresses her. Natsukawa immediately recognizes his voice, but he dodges the question and vanishes into the night. Before leaving, Haruhito reminds her that men can't be explorers and tells Natsukawa to live a long life. She calls out for him to wait, reaching desperately toward his fading aura. Staring at her own hand, Natsukawa suddenly blushes as she recalls his parting words. She lets out a loud, flustered gasp surrounded by floating flowers. Haruhito ponders his next move, looking at his failed Explorer aptitude test. 5 days later, the annual Explorer exam kicks off with a massive crowd of candidates. The presenter spots someone in the crowd and rushes over to grab his attention. Ayukawa gives a brief and nonchalant response. As Natsukawa and her crew interview him outside, she giggles when he casually mentions he came to take the exam instead of just watching. Before asking if he even passed the preliminary magic power assessment, he explains that even though he failed, he heard applicants can still join the main exam by handing in dungeon materials and clearing a practical skill check at the front desk. Admitting he failed outright triggers mocking laughter from Natsukawa, who sneers that adults just call that a polite rejection before cheerfully offering to tag along to the front desk. With a calm smile, Haruhito readily agrees to let her tag along. Reaching the counter, the receptionist asks if he really wishes to participate, and Haruhito answers with a firm yes. Sighing at another delusional applicant, the receptionist tells him to hand over his dungeon materials. Natsukawa watches with a smug grin, whispering that folks like him always just buy cheap magic stones at an auction. Haruhito produces a glowing blue magic stone, prompting the receptionist to note that while its exact origin is unknown, it likely comes from an A-rank monster or higher. Overhearing the exchange, Natsukawa bursts out laughing, mocking that beating an A-rank would make someone an S-rank explorer. As the receptionist starts to scold him for lying, she suddenly snaps and tells someone to shut up and be quiet. Natsukawa stops in her tracks with a confused look on her face. Examining the strange blue gem, the examiner notes that its high-level magic signature surpasses even an A-rank monster, while Ayukawa stays silent. Wondering if it links to a dragon knight, the examiner asks to send the stone to the investigation room, and he simply lets her take it. Nearby onlookers gasp in sheer shock that she actually accepted a guy's item, expecting men to only ever bring in trash. Suddenly remembering there is still a practical exam, the onlookers snap back to attention. As the practical exam gets underway, another student steps up to the massive crystal to test their magic. A student places their glowing hand against the towering crystal. The device measures 87 points, easily granting the student a C-rank certification and a pass. The reporter loudly reminds everyone that men supposedly lack magic entirely, claiming cheap tricks can never make a man an explorer. The examiner explains that exceeding 50 points on the measuring device advances candidates to the main exam. She notes that since men lack magic power altogether, holding back during the test is going to be tough for them. Suddenly, the measuring crystal explodes with energy, leaving the examiner staring in absolute shock at an impossible S-rank reaction from a man. Panic breaks out as the crowd insists it has to be a malfunction because men cannot possess magic, leaving Natsuki staring in disbelief. Refusing to accept the reality of the situation, Natsuki screams that it must be tested again because it is definitely a glitch. He asks the proctor if he can try one more time. The nervous woman stammers out a weak yes. Natsuki stares at her papers, insisting there's no way he can pull this off. She keeps watching in pure disbelief, repeating that it is simply impossible. Her eye widens in absolute shock as she stares in pure disbelief. Haruhito reaches out and asks if he can take the main exam. Back in the past, a young friend insists on becoming an explorer right alongside him because they are friends. He smiles back, locking it in as a promise just between the two of them. Back in the present, she wakes up realizing it was just another dream about that longing for a summer that will never return. Meanwhile, in a grand bedroom, a maid stands quietly while she sits up in bed. At the stadium, the host grabs the mic to tell the packed audience that the main exam is super simple. She announces it is going to be a massive battle royale. Anyone who steps out of bounds or faints gets immediately disqualified. It is a free-for-all brawl among every single participant who made it to the main exam. The announcer adds that there is some huge news waiting for everyone. She tells the crowd to look closely at the first major incident since the Explorer system began. Believe it or not, standing right there among the examinees is a male. The host laughs at the crowd's loud boos, reassuring everyone that the rules won't change just because a weak guy is taking part. Watching from the stands, Itsuki Satsuki reacts in sheer disbelief as she points out that it really is a guy down there. She grins widely, completely amused by the absurdity of a male explorer in the exam. Yui Yuika joins in with a gentle smile, calling him cute for trying. Hidden behind a curtain, Clara Kurosaki scoffs to herself, muttering that anyone trying this is just a delusional idiot. Itsuki asks Rank 1 if she's fine with a man taking the exam, prompting Towa Fuyutsuki to coldly ask for his name. As her secretary Arya begins to answer, Towa cuts her off, declaring there is no point in remembering a man's name. Arya acknowledges the order, while Itsuki laughs, pointing out that Towa is sticking to her usual man-hating ways. Yui finds boys cute, especially when they waste their energy on futile efforts. Clara chimes in from behind her sheet, admitting she hates men too, because they are weak and always stick together. Someone up top calls it absurd that he made it to the main exam and tells Arya to investigate him. Down in the arena, the host happily announces that the main exam is finally underway. The exam kicks off with a massive surge of dark energy, catching everyone completely off guard. Ayukawa steps into the fray, activating his shadow art because he promised his buddy he would. Standing alone amid the dark aura, shocked onlookers stare at the strange guy and the shadowy phenomenon, wondering what is happening. Rank 1 leans forward from her seat and asks Arya for the intruder's name. Arya checks her tablet and confirms his name is Haruhito Ayukawa. Hearing that name infuriates Rank 1, who declares it disgusting to have a man here and instantly adds a new rule. The announcer relays Rank 1's royal decree that anyone who takes down the male examinee passes unconditionally. The crowd gasps in awe as they realize that the powerful Lady Towa herself is in the building. They think beating a mere guy in the exam is going to be a walk in the park. The narrator notes that human eyes cloud over with greed when an easy opportunity appears, looking just like explorers spotting a dungeon treasure. The attackers arrogantly tell him to yield like a man and blame him for standing out, completely forgetting that every dungeon treasure always has a monstrous guardian waiting on guard. He asks them back if gender really matters at all. The defeated fighters stare in utter shock, wondering how he pulled that off. She drops her microphone in sheer disbelief as the attack lands. A microphone flies through the air after being sliced cleanly in half. The severed handle of the microphone falls through the bright blue sky. With a confident grin, he asks if they still want to keep fighting. Standing tall amid the wreckage of the Explorer exam, he leaves the spectators completely hyped up by his overwhelming display. Up in the viewing area, Towa watches with a surprised smile, wondering if that mysterious shadow is some kind of divine artifact. Meanwhile, a blue shadowy figure completely loses it, in absolute denial that a man could ever be this strong. Arya calls out to Rank 1 with a worried look as something unexpected happens. She calls out again, watching as Rank 1 suddenly reacts with a wide-eyed stare. Rank 1 flashes back to a fading memory of a boy she met once at the Fuyutsuki villa. That same childhood memory keeps playing in her mind over and over. As she longs for a lost summer, she finally utters Ayukawa's name in utter disbelief. Arya Akini stares in absolute shock, asking if that is really Lady Towa. Towa stammers out a flustered welcome, while Arya loses her mind in disbelief. Down in the corner, Towa sits frozen with a deeply flustered expression. Clara Kurosaki can't believe her eyes, wondering if Towa is actually acting like this. Before anyone can process it, Itsuki bolts up and announces she has to step away for a second. Arya yells for Rank Fee to wait, but Towa tells her to just let her go. Itsuki flashes a wild grin, shouting that she is off to face the queen. Down in the arena, someone calls out to Lord Explorer, who simply replies yeah as Itsuki charges in. A blinding flash erupts as Itsuki clashes head-on with Lord Explorer in a massive shockwave. Itsuki loses her mind, realizing he blocked her attack, wondering if teleportation is a skill and asking if he is really a man. He flashes a smirk, asking if he looks like a woman. Itsuki Satsuki loves the attitude, declaring a wild new rule on the spot. She points right at him, announcing anyone who beats her passes instantly as the crowd freaks out. Nobody knows what is happening anymore, but one thing is clear. That guy is fighting an S-rank explorer on equal ground. Itsuki loses her mind because he cannot even land a hit on her despite the intense clash. Lord Explorer finds it all bizarre, realizing his enhanced vision lets him see and dodge everything coming his way. He stays on high alert as Itsuki lunges in, leaving her utterly shocked. Yuika panics from the sidelines, realizing the opponent is an S-rank pinnacle explorer. Lord Explorer grabs her mid-air, wondering out loud why she feels so light. Itsuki lets out a grunt as she crashes down, earning a smooth reaction from Towa Fuyutsuki. Towa catches her fallen ally, gently telling Satsuki that she seems to be in danger. Up in the air, the hooded figure with the glowing smile finds it hilarious, watching an extrovert get blown away, before asking why his friends showed up too. Down below, the small hooded companion says the boss gave them permission, and Yui casually asks if a 3-on-1 fight is okay. As the analysis finishes up, Ayukawa realizes with a shock that all three of his opponents are divine artifact users. He recalls how explorers of this era can still use skills, musing that divine artifacts used to be mere training wheels in the previous world. Standing in the arena, Ayukawa remembers the strange sensation of throwing a rank 5 explorer just moments before. Clenching his fist, he remembers how surprisingly light she felt when he tossed her aside. Deciding this is his chance, Ayukawa powers up with dark energy to test just how far he can push his limits in this ultra-female-dominant society. With a burst of fierce energy, Ayukawa charges forward into battle alongside his opponents as lightning crackles across the arena. She demands to know what is causing this overwhelming pressure. She reacts in shock as the strange entity strikes again. She gets swept up in the fierce exchange as the battle intensifies. The rabbit creature presses the attack with relentless force. Haruhito takes a massive blow straight to the head from the creature. He steps forward and channels his power into a massive blue fist. Haruhito unleashes a devastating counterattack against the giant plush threat. Yui watches the chaos unfold from above with a calm expression. Towa laughs wildly as she hurls another giant obstacle into the fray. Shocked by how easily he blocked her attack, Itsuki immediately calls out to Clara to make her move. Haruhito tells her not to rush him, speaking Yui's full name before unleashing his violet blade wave. With a casual oops, Haruhito's wave shatters the entire battlefield, leaving Clara to gasp in pure disbelief. Yui can only stare in disbelief as the dust settles over the wreckage. The 3 S-rank explorers land together, catching their breath amidst the debris. Haruhito casually admits he is actually pretty strong, telling the S-rank explorers they can start going all out now. Pushed to her absolute limit, Itsuki glares at him with pure rage and promises to make him cry. Inside the massive arena, the crowd watches in absolute disbelief at what is unfolding. Stunned spectators stare in shock, asking each other how something this impossible could even happen. Watching from the stands, the man in the suit insists it has to be rigged because no guy could be that strong. The hooded person watches nervously, muttering that it must be some kind of trick. The hooded figure glances down with a troubled expression. Nearby, a man narrows his eyes at the shocking display. Overwhelmed by the moment, the spectators repeat in utter disbelief that he is doing all this even though he is a guy. The hooded figure gasps, wondering if that detail even matters right now. Unfazed, the man in the suit calmly starts lecturing about what truly matters for an explorer. Outraged, a spectator yells out that he has no right to lecture them. Before she can finish telling him off for just being a guy, she takes a brutal hit and gasps out in pain. The crowd goes wild, cheering in amazement as they watch him completely overpower an S-rank explorer. Spectators roar with deafening cheers from the stands. The hooded watcher cowers in fear, pointing out how the mighty S-rank on TV is now reduced to tears. Nearby men grin maliciously, urging each other to beat the crap out of those annoying women. The crowd raises their fists, chanting aggressively for them to get beaten up. Disgusted by the chaotic scene, one of the women glares at the men and mutters that this is why she hates them. Natsuki yelps in surprise as Clara cowers in fear, overwhelmed by the sheer number of men around. The trembling S-rank explorer hides beneath her cloak, panicking at the sight of them and admitting how much she hates it. Yui stares in disbelief, asking her companion what is wrong since her phobia was supposed to be cured. Yui urges Clara to pull herself together, insisting she is way stronger than some random guy. Meanwhile, a spectator watches in sheer awe, wondering what kind of guy he is when he is this strong. Clara breaks down completely, terrified that all the other men will be just like him. Nearby spectators gasp in shock upon realizing that Clara Kurosaki is actually crying. The crowd sneers, gleefully confirming that the internet rumors about her severe androphobia are true. Some male onlookers laugh lewdly, thrilled to see her crying face and admitting it turns them on. Ayukawa stands quietly in the background, listening to the jeers without saying a word. The agitated male contestants roar at Ayukawa, demanding that he punish the cocky woman and show her their rage. Ayukawa narrows his glowing blue eyes, calmly telling them that they are simply being too loud. Caught off guard by his comment, a student mutters in confusion as sudden pressure builds around them. As he calls it distracting, a contestant nearby gasps for air and collapses. Up in the stands, Itsuki Satsuki watches in utter disbelief and asks what is going on. Nearby, Clara asks why he would step in, reminding everyone that they are just guys. Ayukawa tells her she does not deserve to be mocked by guys like that. He explains that a flying slash using applied magic power is not something you learn overnight. He points out that for an explorer, gender does not matter at all. Ayukawa adds that strength is all that truly counts in the end. With the noise finally gone, he declares that they should resume the explorer exam. Up in the stands, Itsuki offers a forced laugh while Toa maintains a silent stare. Energy flares across the arena as the confrontation reaches its peak. Clara stares in absolute shock, demanding to know what manner of monster he really is. A sudden burst of light flashes across the battleground as tension fills the air. Up close, Ayukawa addresses Rank I as an SSS-RANK explorer with a steady gaze. Down in the arena, a massive explosion splits the ground as 3 shocked spectators watch in disbelief. The strongest explorer steps into the fray with a giant sword and tells everyone that's enough. Rank I asks Ayukawa if he's Haruhito Ayukawa, and he pauses before confirming it. Rank I grips her massive blade tightly as memories of the past begin to surface. Rank I's expression softens in sudden realization as she remembers him. Blushing and flustered, Rank I asks him if he really doesn't remember her. Ayukawa stares back in total confusion, asking her what on earth she's talking about. Rank I's eyes narrow sharply as her warm expression instantly vanishes. Sensing the overwhelming magic power radiating around her, Ayukawa figures out she must be Rank I. Ayukawa declares he has a promise to keep with an important friend whose name he doesn't even know, and challenges her to be his opponent. Rank I's eyes widen in intense shock as she looks right at a glowing blade. A close-up shot reveals the sharp edge of a weapon held ready for combat. Rank I mutters that he really does remember, flashing back to their childhood meeting on the beach. Dark energy surges across the arena as both fighters stand face-to-face in the massive stadium. Suddenly, an emergency warning system triggers across the arena, confirming a catastrophic dungeon monster rampage. Up above, a massive purple vortex tears open the sky with blinding electric energy. Fuyutsuki stares up at the expanding rift in total shock, wondering what on earth is happening. Out of the glowing fracture, a gigantic skeletal hand reaches down into the arena. The towering skeletal entity gathers a blinding orb of light right between its bony fingers. Down below, the students look up in disbelief, wondering if a second sun has just appeared. Without warning, the giant skeleton unleashes a devastating beam of pure cosmic energy. Watching from the sidelines, Natsuki and the others can only gasp in horror as the blast descends. Fuyutsuki grits her teeth and swings her massive sword to deflect the incoming destruction. Fuyutsuki announces that her safety restrictions are officially lifted. Her confident smile vanishes instantly as Haruhito steps forward, unleashing an overwhelming wave of dark magic that leaves her utterly speechless. An automated alert rings out, confirming the terrifying appearance of an SSS-class monster. The system announces that the former Avalon Treaty has just been overridden. In accordance with the Babel Treaty, a partial release of an SSS-RANK explorer's power begins. Dark magic surges violently around Haruhito as he prepares to unleash his true abilities. Haruhito feels his past life memories screaming inside him and invokes the Omni-Shadow art. A swirling vortex of purple energy concentrates tightly right in the palm of his hand. Haruhito shouts full release as his magical pressure explodes outward into the dark space. A massive pillar of violet light shoots straight down, carving into the ground with immense force. The blinding beam impacts the earth below, sending shockwaves and blazing light in every direction. The immense energy beam tears through the sky, piercing deep into the rift above. A colossal explosion erupts in the heavens, shattering the surrounding space with red and purple light. Spectators watch in horror as one of the god-level monsters that ruined the future begins to appear. Haruhito stares upward in disbelief as a gigantic skeletal finger breaches the dimensional tier. A massive creature with rainbow-colored eyes reveals itself, identified as the terrifying Nether King Ida. He stares ahead in sudden dread as reality warps. The young man mutters in sheer disbelief, asking if this world is going through the exact same nightmare. Nearby, Natsuki Natsukawa wonders what just happened, while her friend brushes it off as some special effect. Realizing the grave danger, Haruhito Ayukawa screams at everyone to run for their lives. Panic ripples through the stadium as the eerie phenomenon unfolds. Recognizing the exact course of his past life, Haruhito Ayukawa watches in horror as dungeon gates confirm their opening. As the monstrous rampage begins, he grabs his head in despair, cursing that the terrifying future is repeating itself. He orders the crowd to stop staring and evacuate straight to the Ayash shelter immediately, leaving everyone stunned. He suddenly realizes those shelters do not even exist in this era yet, leaving Fuyutsuki to wonder how he knows such confidential information. Desperate to save lives, Haruhito Ayukawa begs the audience to grab their families and flee the city at once. He warns them that the catastrophic rampage is going to start in less than 10 minutes. Dark demonic hands pull against massive chains behind the ominous gates. Panicking spectators wonder what to do, with Natsuki Natsukawa deciding to call her family just in case. Nearby spectators stubbornly refuse to listen to him, angrily demanding why they should take orders from someone they came to cheer for. He demands to know what she just said, but Fuyutsuki tells him he has done enough already. She notes that he always gets hurt for the sake of fools, leaving Haruhito to wonder if it is Prometheus. As the young man yells that she needs to go home instead, Fuyutsuki tells him to shut his mouth for a second. Fuyutsuki stands right beside Haruhito in the center of the illuminated arena. Haruhito stands stunned in the arena, asking if Fuyutsuki is kidding him. Fuyutsuki steps closer to Haruhito and abruptly calls him out. She confronts Haruhito and demands to know where he heard about the Ayash shelter. Fuyutsuki starts to say it is classified conglomerate information before quickly dropping the subject. Haruhito cuts in to ask what is about to happen and how to counter it, and Fuyutsuki warns that monsters will spawn nearby. Haruhito realizes the monsters will appear above ground, but worries that he has no proof to make anyone believe him. Knowing research on rampages hasn't started yet, Fuyutsuki immediately orders Arya to connect her to the governor and prime minister. Fuyutsuki calls on the phone, identifying herself and telling them to declare a state of emergency while taking full responsibility. She demands the prime minister mobilize the disaster response center right away without wasting any time. Fuyutsuki then tells Jiya to open all Ayash shelters immediately, even if they are still just prototypes. Haruhito Ayukawa demands to know what is going on, and Prometheus calmly replies that she believes him. Fuyutsuki looks at her phone in disbelief and asks what she should do next. A horned figure laughs maniacally, pointing out that there are far too many people around. His companion agrees that the king gave them permission to kill anyone, planning to take the rare ones as wives and slaughter the rest. Natsukawa wonders if someone like her can really pull this off, while Yoi asks the president what's happening, and little Clara timidly offers to help out. Toa cuts through the confusion by saying she's asking Ayukawa that exact question herself. Toa tells Ayukawa that the civilian evacuation is about to begin and asks him what they should do next. Ayukawa tells everyone to get the people into the shelters, prompting Toa to leap forward and order the citizens to evacuate immediately while demanding their answer. Up in the stands, the crowd of spectators starts filing out of the stadium toward safety. The stadium empties out as the spectators quickly follow the evacuation order. Ayukawa turns to Toa and asks why she trusts him, catching her by surprise. He presses the point, asking her again why she actually believes him. She stays quiet for a moment, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Toa blushes intensely, her expression softening into a shy, flustered smile. Holding a finger to her lips, she gives him a playful smile and says she's not telling. Suddenly, Arya appears nearby and respectfully addresses Lady Toa. Arya asks for forgiveness for the sudden intrusion before offering an urgent piece of advice. Toa looks on from above and tells her to speak up. He admits Ayukawa protected everyone from the magic attack, but tries to object before Toa cuts in demanding to hear the rest. She glares with a sharp, glowing eye. Arya screams that she refuses to believe a single word, insisting a surface monster invasion is totally impossible, right before a massive explosion blows her away and leaves her completely stunned. The Explorer Association blasts an urgent warning across the city about unidentified monsters appearing everywhere. Sirens blare as armored monsters attack civilians, while emergency teams and local units flood the association with frantic calls for backup. Back at the stadium, Toa asks if anyone besides Arya still doubts Ayukawa, and the group quietly answers no. Satisfied with the answer, Toa declares they are moving out immediately to rescue the citizens and wipe out the monsters. Toa suddenly points at Ayukawa and asks for his input, leaving him completely startled. Arya loses her mind watching Lady Toa ask an outsider for advice. Toa asks if he remembers how monsters behave during a rampage, and Ayukawa confirms he definitely does. He explains they follow 2 strict rules. They charge straight for the most crowded areas and hunt down targets soaked in magic power like explorers. Turning the tables, Ayukawa asks Toa a crucial question right back. Why do monsters target explorers in the first place? He points out that anyone dragged into the dungeons never returns, so they need to prepare for the worst and protect the academy. As he speaks, he realizes the enemy is targeting the facility. Meanwhile, students stand braced for trouble near the rubble. Even so, she refuses to back down from the threat. The winged invader looks down with pure disgust, complaining that watching males let females protect them is completely unbearable. He glares down at them with glowing eyes, demanding to know if they feel any shame. The terrifying pressure makes the boys tremble in fear. He shouts down at them, asking if they have any pride left as men. The terrified students can only shriek in absolute terror. Before he can finish taunting them, Natsukawa suddenly leaps from above with her blade ready. She tells him right to his face that he talks way too much. The others gasp in shock as they realize Natsukawa made the move. For a second, everyone thinks she actually got him. Except the enemy instantly grabs her by the throat, cutting her off. He holds her aloft, telling her she's not bad. She struggles silently as she is choked. He notes her natural talent for hiding her presence, leaving her gasping for air. Leaning in close, the demon declares that he likes her and she will bear his offspring. Coughing and crying, Natsukawa thinks this has got to be a joke. Nearby students panic, screaming out for someone to save her. A grinning smile crosses his face as he comes up with a wonderful idea. He gives the males an ultimatum: abandon the female and leave, or face him. Challenging them directly, he tightens his grip on Natsukawa. Tears stream down her face as she struggles desperately for breath. A student looks on in sheer terror. Overwhelmed by fear, the boys break down and flee, screaming apologies to Natsukawa. They panic and run away, shouting that it is not their fault. Watching them flee, the demon remarks that a talented female like her is wasted on them. A hand hangs motionless over them. She crashes hard onto her knees, coughing up blood from her injuries. The ground as the battle pauses. He mocks her, pointing out that she hadn't fully healed. Sparks fly from a severe tear in her clothing as the damage settles in. Natsukawa stares in total disbelief, realizing her wound won't close. Standing over her, the demon demands she lick his fingers to become his mate. Cornered and desperate, Natsukawa asks if he will spare her life. She begs for everyone else too, but he coldly promises safety only to her. Watching from nearby, another girl screams in terror for Natsukawa to stop. A dark bruise mars her neck as she accepts the grim condition. Closing her eyes, she complies with his demands. The winged invader towers over Natsukawa, praising her for being a good girl. Natsukawa opens her mouth as the demon extends a finger toward her. She complies, sticking her tongue out as part of the grim submission. Instead of submitting, she suddenly bites down hard on his finger, drawing purple blood. The demon pulls his bleeding finger back, demanding to know what is going on. Surrounded by dark energy, she flashes a bright, defiant smile and declares there is no way she will yield because she already has a boy she likes. Realizing she refuses to obey, the demon calmly gathers dark energy in his hand and tells her to die. Accepting her fate, Natsukawa smiles through her tears and whispers a final goodbye. Just as the strike is about to land, a sudden voice interrupts from behind. Natsukawa reacts in shock as dark, surging energy violently shatters the surrounding space. Caught off guard, the demon demands to know what on earth is going on right now. The winged invader mocks his sudden arrival, but Ayukawa coldly replies he came straight from the shadows. Laughing off the attitude, the horned enemy calls him a cheeky brat. He unleashes a massive blast of magic, pointing out that his intentions are completely obvious. Down below, the students panic in sheer terror as the destruction closes in. The horned demon casually admits he might have accidentally killed them. He contemplates whether to finish off the rest of the survivors or go join his brother instead. Suddenly, Ayukawa reappears right behind him with burning blue eyes, asking how on earth he is still breathing. The demon stares in absolute shock. Ayukawa drops a calm explanation, stating it is simply because he blocked the attack. He sneers before grinning wildly, declaring that fighting to the death is what real men do. As the horned invader demands a manly duel, Ayukawa casually interrupts him, leaving the fiend completely stunned. He ignores the monster entirely to check on Natsukawa, asking if she can manage to walk. Without missing a beat, Ayukawa scoops the injured student up in his arms, prompting a surprised gasp from her. Enraged by the blatant disrespect, the winged demon flies into a furious punch. Natsukawa gasps in sheer terror as the massive blow comes down. The attacker bursts into maniacal laughter, thrilled at the impending violence. Before the punch lands, an overwhelming wave of dark magic erupts, with a shadowy entity telling him to wait. Watching from the rubble, a classmate marvels at how this guy just shrugged off a monster's attack. Suddenly, he stops and stares closer, realizing that something about that face looks hauntingly familiar. She calls out in shock as Natsukawa spots her rescuer on the battlefield. He checks if she can stand up, and she manages a timid yes. Flustered, she stammers and asks if he's really Haruhito. He smiles gently and tells her it's been a while. She starts to bring up how he saved her before, but an enraged voice cuts her off. She stands frozen in shock. Ayukawa calmly turns his gaze toward the furious opponent glaring at him. The angry guy loses his mind, shouting that a dropout has no business acting tough. Nearby, the other girls whisper in disbelief and urge him to run away from the danger. Ayukawa drops to one knee right in front of the female explorers. He looks them in the eye and tells them he respects the work they do. They stare back at him in total confusion. He praises them for protecting everyone to the bitter end. After thanking them, he leaves his opponent grinding his teeth in frustration. Stepping up to the rescue, Ayukawa tells the terrified students to leave the rest to him, and she stammers out a weak agreement. Down below, Ayukawa stares right across the gap at the winged demon standing ready in the distance. With a calm smile, Ayukawa prepares to throw down and starts things off. Finding the chat hilarious, the demon laughs it off and remarks how amusing it was. He asks for Ayukawa's name, but suddenly stops short in shock as something snaps. A massive slash tears right through the ground between them, carving a deep chasm across the earth. Ayukawa draws a hard boundary in the dirt, warning the invader that crossing that line means death, leaving the demon wide-eyed in disbelief. Refusing to be bossed around, the demon ignores the warning and charges straight in. Before the demon can react, Ayukawa closes the distance and sends him flying with a crushing strike, catching the villain completely off guard. Moving in close, Ayukawa calmly announces he is aiming straight for the demon's stomach. Telling him to defend himself for dear life, Ayukawa unleashes a devastating punch packed with dark energy right into his core. Ayukawa tells him to defend himself properly as his draining mana leaves the demon choking. Kneeling on the ground in agony, the desperate invader gasps as his power drains away. Standing right above his fallen target, Ayukawa tells him to get back up because they are just getting started. With glowing blue eyes, Ayukawa challenges him to come at him for real or the fight will be over in no time. Thrilled by the challenge, the horned invader laughs wildly and unleashes a massive wave of energy. Wide-eyed with shock, the demon barely registers what hits him before getting blown away. Amidst the thick dust, the horned fighter laughs out loud and declares the battle excellent. Holding his blade high, the grinning demon says it is better than he hoped to find someone on the surface who can push him this far. Towa and Natsukawa stare in utter disbelief, asking themselves what on earth is happening. Ramuziera Uza Enoch yells out his name, acknowledging Ayukawa as a warrior and calling for a duel between men before crashing down. Ayukawa invokes shadow arts, leaving the invader completely baffled as his own gear starts breaking apart. Ramuziera Uza Enoch reels in shock, realizing his mana armor and divine sword are shattered and his wounds won't heal. Dark energy pours continuously from the defeated fighter. He trembles at the bizarre sensation of having even his very mana cut right apart. A voice shouts out in shock at the sudden display of a skill. He demands to know how on earth a mere human could possibly use skills. Ramuziera Uza Enoch admits this fight goes beyond human limits, but Ayukawa feels completely outmatched by that crushing power. Pressing his blade in, Ayukawa notes that Ramuziera Uza Enoch reminds him of someone, while the injured demon laughs and calls him terrifying. Ramuziera Uza Enoch laughs off the pain as his weapon shatters, warning his younger brother that this opponent is way too dangerous. Ayukawa checks his count after the battle, confirming the capture of an SS-class monster mana stone. As the system starts retrieval, Ayukawa looks baffled when it just eats the stone, prompting an update that one SS-class signature remains near Towa. Watching from afar, a man in a white coat can't believe his eyes. convinced no human could ever fight like that. Down in the rain, a student points him out to everyone, shouting that it is Ayukawa. He keeps yelling that Ayukawa is the guy who punched him and ran off, calling him a weird monster who fights dirty. Panicking, he begs Towa to kill the monster, claiming everyone saw him control shadows and isn't human, while Towa just stares in silence. Standing under the stormy sky, Ayukawa faces the group from a distance. Frustrated by their silence, he demands to know what's with their looks and why won't anyone listen to him. He loses his mind completely, screaming that Ayukawa is just a worthless failure and a total monster. Clara yells from the side that trash shouldn't get carried away and orders someone to kill him already. Rain splashes against the ground near a high-heeled boot. He looks up in shock as Natsukawa suddenly steps right in front of him. Catching her breath, Natsukawa holds her face with her hands. She steels her resolve, deciding she is all right. Ayukawa calls out to her from the distance, worried about her terrible injuries. Before he can finish, Natsukawa suddenly lunges forward and pulls him into a tight embrace. Startled by the sudden hug, Ayukawa stammers out that he is fine while she buries her face in his suit. Natsukawa hugs him tightly, insisting she is fine because he saved her life. With tears in her eyes, she quietly reassures him that she is okay. A classmate shouts out in surprise, pointing out that everyone is staring at their public embrace. Natsukawa snaps back at the onlookers, refusing to let go without thanking the person who saved her. Nearby on the ground, another student watches in bitter disbelief, wondering why she chose him. Ayukawa checks on the lingering magic signature before apologizing for his abruptness. She looks up at him with a gentle smile, asking if he is going to rush off and save someone else again. Calling him by name, she cheerfully promises to go eat together once he gets back. Startled by the abrupt demand, Ayukawa stammers out a quick yes as dark magic surges around him. Natsukawa watches him leave, entirely captivated and thinking he is so cool. Sirens wail across the dark, ruined city under the pouring rain. Towa flies above the devastated landscape, tracking down the source of the destruction. She confronts the horned demon over the ruins, demanding to know if he caused this, but he just grins and asks if it is a problem. Ramuziera Uza Enoch admits that asking was foolish of him. Sparks fly in the air as magic energy crackles around the battlefield. Caught off guard with a confused sound, the demon hears Ramuziera Uza Enoch call him really unpleasant. Towa searches the ruined streets for anyone still alive. Calling out into the gloom, Towa suddenly hears distant cries and stops in her tracks. Amidst the wreckage, a little girl stands sobbing next to a fallen creature. Teary-eyed and trembling, the girl gasps as a figure rushes toward her. Towa drops down to the ground, reaching out to the frightened child. Startled by the arrival, the girl looks up as Towa gently tells her she survived. Pulling her into a warm embrace, Towa apologizes for being late and tells her it's okay. Overwhelmed by the relief, the child breaks down completely and cries in her arms. As the girl weeps into her shoulder, Towa listens in silence without a word. The girl sobs out the name Leo, explaining that he protected her before the monster struck him down. She observes the young girl, remarking that she has a good family. She reaches out and gently places her hand upon the white dog. She looks down at the animal, calling it truly man's best friend. The little girl spots her pet, calling out its name as the dog barks happily in return. The dog rests its head down quietly on the ground. Towa asks about the child's parents, prompting the girl to remember her mom and dad. Towa looks down at the injured parents lying on the street. Realizing they are barely breathing, she decides it is not yet their time to die. She holds out her hands to cast her healing magic. Towa grits her teeth with intense focus as her magic takes effect. The man groans as he regains consciousness, prompting the overjoyed girl to cry out for her parents. Nearby onlookers spot Towa and excitedly recognize that she has come to their rescue. An explorer rushes up to express deep gratitude for Towa's assistance. Towa brushes off the praise, telling her to prioritize civilian safety before freezing in sudden shock. Towa stares wide-eyed at something unexpected appearing before her. She looks up with a sharp gaze, noticing the danger closing in. She calls out to everyone to warn them of what is coming. Reaching out with urgency, she tells everyone to get down right now. A massive wave of strange blue energy surges violently through the area. Towa reacts instantly, bracing herself against the incoming onslaught. A fierce clash erupts as a blinding torrent of magic tears through the space. The horned demon laughs it off, admitting he let his guard down for a second. Towa tells someone to stay hidden while staring at the creature, in disbelief, realizing its body is entirely made of liquid. The terrifying entity grins widely, telling her that her looks are what truly matter. The liquid beast swoops in closer, demanding to get a better look at her face. Towa leaps through the air with her sword drawn amidst a burst of blue energy. She steps down hard onto the cracked ground, unleashing a powerful shockwave. She launches herself through the rushing water toward the hovering demonic threat. She closes in swiftly, her eyes locked onto her target. Towa confronts the enemy directly, announcing that she came to show her face. Natsuki watches in total disbelief, exclaiming that she pulled it off in an instant. Towa angrily orders the hidden onlookers to stay put. The winged demon grins, declaring he hasn't finished him off yet. The demon agrees with a sinister smile, confirming that is correct. The winged character grins wildly as his opponent is severed in a burst of blue energy. Mocking the fallen fighter for failing to protect her, the demon vows to hunt down all the remaining monkeys hiding nearby, driving Towa into a furious rage. The horned invader chuckles, noting that beneath that tough exterior, she's actually soft-hearted. Expanding his skill into heavenly water, the winged demon spreads his massive white wings and calls her adorable. The winged invader grins, telling her it's just a trial and wondering if she can really protect those weaklings. Furious, she calls him scum and releases her magic power under the Avalon Treaty, declaring that this is why she despises men. Rank-I readies her blade for a heavy strike. She unleashes a massive glowing slash across the battlefield. The winged invader cheers in excitement as he watches the flying slash. He grins wildly and notes that there is no way to dodge the attack. A torrent of heavy water surges violently through the ruined street. Rank-I counters the oncoming torrent with another fierce attack. Nearby, the little girl spots the danger and desperately shouts a warning. The horned demon laughs as he prepares his magic. Rank-I stares in shock at the sudden threat. Shouting a desperate stop, the little girl's older sister unleashes her own wave of magic. The massive energy blast crashes toward the little girl. Rank-I looks down with a cold and steady gaze. As she checks if the child is hurt, the little girl breaks down in tears. Tears stream down the terrified child's face amid the ruins. The winged invader mutters that his heavenly water was far less effective than he thought, expecting a normal person to dissolve instantly. Noticing her high-quality magical energy resisting it, the enemy smirks and calls it quite rare. Furious, Rank-I tells him to shut up and strikes back. But the demon casually shrugs it off, saying it won't work. Ramuziera Uza Enoch grins, explaining that only a skill can counter another skill and humans cannot use them. The floating demon hovers effortlessly above the devastation. Startled by the strange concept, Rank-I asks what a skill is, but the enemy just tells her to keep playing the game. The demon taunts her by asking whether he should kill the monkeys first or if she wants to die first. Rank-I grunts in pain as she presses forward against the assault. Looking around, the demon wonders if the other humans ran away and admits he seems to have lost this round. He flashes a wide, sharp-toothed grin as he prepares his next move. She struggles to catch her breath on the ground, complaining that it is just a game as she silently glares. She clicks her tongue in frustration, realizing she burned through way too much magical energy blocking the water. The horned demon stares down at her, telling her that she has a truly beautiful face. He decides right then and there that she is worthy of standing alongside his race. Flashing a wide grin, he casually suggests that they should get married. He summons magic water in his hand, promising to fill her brain with it. Laughing it off, he tells her not to worry because she will learn to love him very soon. Without missing a beat, the horned invader adds that he is going to awaken her skill next. A brutal punch lands square in her face, forcing a muffled groan from her. He chuckles with amusement, wiping his mouth after the strike. Expressing mild shock that she is still standing, Rank-I mutters that he is completely disgusting. Looking at her own trembling hand, Rank-I realizes she is completely finished and totally out of magic. She notes her severe blood loss and multiple fractures as her vision blurs. Closing her eyes, she thinks to herself that this desperate situation genuinely could not get any worse. A voice tells her that when she is truly in danger, she should call that name because she will definitely come to save her. But she just calls him a clueless idiot who notices nothing. The horned demon asks for her name, but she snaps back that she only tells it to people she actually likes. With a smug smile, she refuses to answer. He just takes it in stride. He decides he will just ask again after he makes her his, leaving her stunned. Suddenly, the system detects an SS-RANK monster, releases Shadow Embrace, and wishes fortune upon him. He can only let out a confused sound. Out of nowhere, a powerful punch connects right across the demon's face. The winged demon is left utterly bewildered by the sudden attack. He smirks and claims it is completely pointless. He insists only a skill can counter a skill, but he immediately spits blood in shock. He stares in horror as he realizes he is actually taking damage. Someone steps onto the ruined street, demanding to know what the blonde demon was talking about regarding skills. The wounded demon laughs it off in disbelief, realizing that humanity actually has one of those fighters too. A skill holder stands at the ultimate pinnacle of magical combat, having reached the absolute peak. Rank I looks up with a sharp glance amid the swirling debris. Haruhito walks right up to Rank I, asking if she can still keep fighting. Rank I complains that he truly never stops talking even in a crisis. A heavy blade hums with energy as it gets pulled into position. Haruhito tells her that is the spirit, and she immediately agrees to press on. Arya gathers the girls sharp and serious, telling them Towa is fighting a monster in Center City. She presses them on their actual mission, reminding them what they're supposed to be doing right now. Natsuki mouths off with a grin, casually calling her 4 eyes before getting to work. Her teammates chime in, laughing as they promise to wrap things up here and back up the boss. Down below the ruins, Arya stands quietly as the winged enemy looms over the shattered terrain. The elderly demon interrupts their chatter, asking if they are finally done talking. He smoothly offers them a polite proposal instead of fighting right away. He kindly asks them to follow him to his domain without putting up any resistance. The old man chuckles, praising the strong wills of these young ladies. But his companion urges Grandpa Gar to hurry up, though he merely asks what could possibly be the matter. The old demon narrows his eyes, realizing that the powerful force that defeated Jamsiera just joined up with another beautiful power. Sakiera realizes with a shock that someone down there might actually die. A massive clash erupts across the battlefield as magic energy flies in every direction. Surrounded by surging blue currents, the young man steps forward with lethal intent. The winged invader cries out in shock as the heavy blow lands. Bleeding and desperate, the blonde man realizes his water form isn't working anymore. Panic sets in as he figures out that these attacks can actually reach his life. Someone points out with a smirk that his expression has completely changed. Gritting his teeth in frustration, the horned man insists that woman should be at death's door. Instead of weakening, she's getting sharper, leaving him to wonder if this whole nightmare is just a joke. Towa sees that Haruhito's attacks can actually hurt their opponent. Haruhito agrees, noting how skills can affect other skills, while Towa tells him she trusts him completely. Up above, the boy looks down in pure disbelief, wondering why she trusts him so completely. The winged demon interrupts his thoughts, snapping that now is definitely not the time for small talk. Grinning with a mouthful of sharp teeth, the demon bursts out laughing after scoring a direct hit. He boasts that his heaven water is the ultimate technique, capable of melting any human in an instant. His triumphant smile vanishes instantly as he stares in shock at the impossible defense. Panicking inside, he tries to calm himself down, telling himself the opponent is just human and planning to target weaker victims again. Haruhito grips his blade tightly as dark purple energy surges around him. Recognizing the terrifying technique, the demon gasps out a question before Haruhito strikes. Before the demon can even react, a spray of dark blood bursts across his chest. Haruhito explains the devastating power of heaven water, noting its fatal flaw of requiring a charge-up time. The winged invader watches in sheer terror as the massive blade pressure streaks through the air. Realizing the slash is already flying toward him, he panics, wondering when the attack was even launched. He stands there wondering how this guy knows his name and the exact details of his skill, until a voice calls out asking if he remembers now. Memories flood back as he realizes it is all coming back to him. He recalls the terrifying Water King Sakiera, a godlike monster that wiped out 20% of humanity in his past life and ultimately killed him, though this version looks different. Natsuki urges Haruhito to keep up the pressure, and he readily agrees to press the attack. The horned invader starts to lash out at the filthy inferior beings for getting carried away. Sudden shock cuts his words short with a brief gasp. Natsuki gasps in surprise as a dark-haired man appears behind her. As she cries out in pain, a commanding voice echoes through the area, expressing deep admiration for their impressive strength. Itsuki demands to know what happened to her subordinates, and an old winged ally reassures her they are alive, even though Sakiera is on the verge of death, leaving the injured horned fighters confused as to why their teacher and seal are there. The elderly demon announces that they have received direct orders from the king to withdraw and end the invasion right there, leaving the others shocked by the sudden command. She demands to know what is going on, but the intruder just laughs and says they are taking the young ladies as spoils of war. The elderly man bids them a quick farewell and promises they will meet again soon. Haruhito refuses to let them escape, stepping in with glowing eyes to stop them.